it's 10 over 10 this morning, the 10th of October, 2024. Good morning. Welcome to your perfect day starter, the morning brief. I'm Kayode Okikulu.
Indeed, every day is the best day of the year, regardless of the odds. So sail against the odds this morning. Good morning and welcome to the morning brief on Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka. You
know, just when you think you've gotten a handle on things, life throws a curveball at you. More like the NNPC limited retail outlets throw a curveball at you, and guess what? Other retail outlets follow suit. Now Nigerians will be buying petrol for, you know, I think a lot of people had made up their mind that they'll be buying petrol for 1,000, even though it was 800 naira plus. But now it is official. NNPC retail outlets and other retail outlets have since upped their petrol pump price to 1,000 naira plus. Well, 998 actually plus. So there you see sort of breakdown that has been going around. And as I said earlier, just when a lot of people had maybe tried to adjust, don't forget that the latest price hike, sorry, the price hike before this price hike came just a few weeks ago. So a lot of people had to shift, adjust, tighten the belt. They had been tightening for months now. I'm not sure if there's still space for tightening. So they had maybe tried to get a handle. So they got their September salary and said, you know what, this is what we'll spend buying fuel. Don't forget, fuel is, it takes a huge chunk of people's spendings, from generating sets to their vehicles, very small machines that they use for businesses and all. So they've done all the budgeting and they thought at least we'll breathe in October. And October says, well, I have something for you. So, Bukola, I don't know. I don't even want to think about what you're thinking right now because I know how big your tank is.
Don't even go there. You know, because prior to this time, some of us had already been purchasing petrol for 1,100 naira per litre some of the time, particularly when you go further down the expressway away from Lagos. It gets more expensive. As Kadi always says, the more things change, the more they remain the same. But there seems to be an extension to that now because, of course, this is going to have an impact on every other thing. And amid all of this is what we do not even understand about the petrol purchase and dispensing arrangement, particularly between Dangote Refinery and major marketers on the one hand, and Dangote Refinery and NNPCL on the other hand. Of course, we now know that the NNPCL has jettisoned that arrangement with Dangote Refinery. So what are the implications of this? How far, so far, with the conversation between the marketers and Dangote Refinery? Have we really exited the importation regime, if indeed we have, you know, a domestic refinery, you know, built by a private investor, and it really is ours? So when do we, you know, put a definite end to the continuing scarcity? Because even amid the very obvious fact that we have refining capacity now, it still hasn't put an end to petrol queues. Everywhere you went yesterday, there were queues, burgeoning queues, you know, at major filling stations. And where there were no queues at all, trust me, you know what the price was. Maybe 1,200 or 1,100 naira per litre. And we haven't even heard explanations, answers to all of these questions from those who should be speaking to Nigerians. Where does it all end?
And that is the annoying bit for a lot of Nigerians. So as a nation grapples with soaring fuel costs, we take you straight to the pump masters this morning. The Petrol Retail Owners Association will be opening up about the truths behind the price hikes, revealing the hidden forces driving the surge, from the economics to perhaps the politics and the unseen hands. No stone will be left unturned this morning. Plus, we ask if there's any reprieve in sight for Nigerians as we keep mounting pressure on the authorities to speak to Nigerians about the situation.
And that's the most important question. Where does it all end, the continuing price hike? But besides that, we'll also be looking at another issue just as important, the lives of Nigerians as they travel on waterways, curbing boat mishaps with the ugly trend of boat accidents from Niger to Lagos, Sokoto, Jigawa, claiming the lives of scores of Nigerians. We speak with the regulators tasked with the responsibility of ensuring safety of travel on the waterways and the commercial boat operators as well. What exactly is the arrangement put in place to regulate, transport on waterways? And who's responsible? Who's taking responsibility? We ask those crucial questions this morning.
Absolutely. So you can be a part of the show. Hashtag CTV Morning Brief. Let us know what you think of this latest price hike. And that is where we're starting off this morning. It's an all-important conversation. So without taking much time, let's get right into it. We're joined on the program this morning by Mr. Billy Gilly Harris, who is the president of PETROAN. That's the Retail Owners Association of Nigeria. Mr. Gilly Harris, thank you for joining us on the Morning Brief. I don't know if you are shocked as Nigerians with this, but clearly you are an insider. So please provide an explanation. What is responsible for this round of fuel price increase yet again? We've just gotten one barely weeks ago, and now another curveball hits us. What's responsible this time?
Well, the facts are very clear from all the messages, social media platforms that have been on. We, as retail outlet owners, try to unravel the situation, whether it was a rumor. Eventually, we got clearly briefed yesterday, that the price indeed will change. And the reasons why it will change, we will not be able to discuss that now because we are yet to get a full brief on what our price will be. It's only when we get that we'll know what are the inputs that have risen, that has culminated into this present price. But what I can tell you is once there is difficulty in landing product by NNPC and the size of shock absorbing that they can do becomes overwhelming, then we certainly want to shed some of the load. And I think that's what was happened, and that's just my thinking. We're yet to be fully briefed on this development. What I can confirm today is that price has changed. You can see it already in some of the major retail outlets, and hopefully once the retail outlet owners start to have product from them, we will also adjust our prices.
But Mr. Gillis Harris, surely you must be hearing something, and some of what we're hearing being quoted by some of our colleagues from marketers who are sources who choose not to be named is that this round of increase is because government has now completely removed subsidy from petrol. I wonder if this is an admission of the obvious fact that we've had to grapple with all along. And is this, in line with what you are hearing as well?
Well, the exact fact is that we have been in a deregulated and full and subsidy removed petrol situation since June 2023. But however, it was not fully implemented. So you kept hearing cliches like recoveries, different kinds of words that were being used to describe it. And if you listen very carefully to Aliko Dangote's interview on Bloomberg, he was clear about the total removal of subsidy and also allowing the market to determine the market forces to determine prices. So all of this, and we as an association have always looked at the bigger picture of what that size of loan that is being taken to subsidize petrol could be used for to better the lives of Nigerians. So yes, we do hear that kind of story, but typical of us, we want to be able to have empirical evidence clearly defined before we make any committed statement. But the truth right now is that petrol prices are going to be, determined by the forces of demand and supply. But this does not mean that the price will always be high. We must remember that whether we like it or not, our dollar exchange value is going to be impacting very highly on the cost of PMS because we are operating a dollarized business in Naira. And this is what we thought that the Dangote Refinery should come to the rescue about, and other refineries in Nigeria should come to the rescue about. We are hoping to get a formal and very clear business discussion with Dangote Refinery and see what is going to be the benefit. Otherwise, we will also have different thoughts. For instance, there is nothing stopping us from importing product, and there's nothing stopping us from also supporting any refinery coming in to make sure that our teaming members have product in their stations and are able to continue doing business.
But Mr. Gilisari, even if that were the case, just days ago, perhaps at the end of last week, the major Energy Marketers Association of Nigeria had disclosed that the landing cost of petrol had reduced to 998 naira per litre. So if that were the case, even if subsidy were removed completely, which is the reason being quoted now by some marketers who sources spoke to our colleagues, why should the pump price of petrol go up if the landing cost of petrol has dropped?
Well, when it's the landing price of petrol, the major marketers organize consistent review sessions where stakeholders, meet, all the critical stakeholders meet and analyze what the situation is. And they've been doing this for quite a long time. That has given us even a much more clearer picture as to what to anticipate, what to expect. But if the landing price is, just round it up to 1,000, because just a few naira, 2 naira or so more, more than what you've said. That does not include the in-country logistics. That also does not include the overheads. So certainly there will be additional, expenses made to make that particular 1 liter available for use by the public. So you look at it, if you invested 1,000 naira plus, what level of profit can you make to pay the cost of that money and to be guaranteed of having another round of purchase and sales? So there are so many elements that make up the component of what actually comes out the out-on liter and the price for that out-on liter in any retail outlet. So that could be one of the reasons. For instance, if you look at even the NNPC ex-depot price, they have made variations in different locations because it costs them more to go to some locations to deliver to us than others. So those are some of the facts that we have to wait to see how they play. I believe that the ones that were changed easily yesterday could have been that there were just maybe some products in the tanks, which is why they could be able to change to sell. But those products that will now be taken off NNPC or anywhere else will have cost components that has to be considered before the final price will be arrived at.
I'm still at the point where I'm just befuddled at the cause of the latest hike. If it's FX, I don't know. There's not been as much change. We've seen it hovering 1.6 for the past 1 month, 1.6 thereabouts, right? The price of crude as well. So what does this demand and supply mean? Because when we look at the forces of demand and supply, nothing much has changed as well. So is there some sort of unseen hand responsible for this as well? Because if this is meant to be determined by the market forces look like they're saying, we're not the ones responsible.
Well, it's not correct. Don't forget that NNPC came out very clearly to say that, look, we're in deficit, we're in debt, we're owing, and the size of debt is humongous. Don't forget that. And that has to be paid off, with some method of business decisions. So have that at the back of your mind. And also, like I said, you could land product at the fairway point at that 998 naira. And so what happens to the inward movement of product to the various depots inland? And then what happens also to the cost of logistics from those depots to the retail outlets, and a few other charges that keep coming up without any clearly defined rules. So those things must always be considered, whether it is NNPC or not. The only thing I want to hold NNPC responsible for is, please ensure that we have enough petrol, enough diesel to guarantee our energy resource to make Nigerians active and contribute to the growth of our economy. And I think if that is solved by NNPC, which we see them working hard to do, and we want them to do better, because we want to see a situation where every week we have at least about 100,000 liters, spread every week, at least 100,000 liters spread across the country. So that's what we are holding them accountable for. And that's what we will look at this time. If this pricing, we guarantee that we have products all the time, and commuters will get into our retail outlets and buy products, that will be one problem solved. Then thereafter, we will now look at what are the issues that we can review.
Right.
What prices can we make sure that, what costs can we reduce to make sure that prices, are much more affordable?
Well, Mr. Gillis-Harry, I understand the bit about supply, ensuring that at least the filling stations are wet, as they say, for you. But for Nigerians, cost is the most important thing. At this rate, petrol is almost becoming a luxury item. Because if you have a supply, who would buy it? Wages are not increasing as fast as petrol is increasing. It has increased more than ×5 since last year. The minimum wage only increased about ×2. And that's the minimum wage. Other people earning probably had their salaries cut or other things eaten into it. So salary is not really increasing in that sense. Even Nigeria's economy is not increasing as fast as that. So this singular item is defying all odds, growing faster than any other thing. Again, I wonder if it's becoming a luxury item. So maybe let's start charging VAT on it and know that petrol is luxury, not for the everyday man. But back to the point about the stock. So questions have been asked. The stock you're currently selling now, imagine your filling station still have stock. Where did you get it from? Is it the one that the NNPC is said to have got it from Dangote? Did it even get from Dangote? Or is it still the same imported petrol that you have in stock?
Well, right now, when you talk about the stock now, we should be looking at what is going on across the whole country. In some parts of the country today, there are big retail outlets that still have stock that they are unable to sell. So when we talk about these prices, it is not only the commuters that are crying. We retail outlet owners cry the highest because we are stocking our products from different sources. One, money that is consistently being charged. And so when we have products in our retail outlets, it is a challenge for us if we do not discharge them, if we not dispose of them as fast as possible. And we are suffering that because the purchase power of most Nigerians have whittled down, and when they come to the retail outlet, for a car that probably should need about 50 liters, they just buy only 5 or 6 liters, just only for what is needed to be done. So it's not only the users that are crying. We, the retail outlet owners, are crying too. And we certainly will want a situation where if there's a possibility for us to make input into what the government should be, we should advise the government to ensure that there is enough economic activity in the country to guarantee higher wages. This is the time we should be talking about massive infrastructural development, engaging our youth, engaging our women, engaging our men. That's the only way that economies grow that is so easy to understand. So yes, I do agree with you that wages are not increasing as petrol prices are increasing, but here we are. We need petrol to even grind beans in the market. The hairdresser needs petrol to fire I pass my neighbor generator. In the office today, as I'm speaking to you, it is petrol we're using, but we have converted to gas. So that's another way of also making sure that we have some energy source to fire our economic activities. So I sympathize with all of us, be inclusive, and every PETROAN member that is patriotic inclusive. We certainly want to do what we must do, but right today we are dependent on the sources of Dangote if he gets to discussing with us, and we have a clear knowledge of what we want to do. Because I'm even wondering why we are not being discussed with very formally and openly in times like this. We have thousands of retail outlets under our management. We have, the access to make Dangote's product to be moved to the hinterland as fast as possible. But we need to discuss. Then we depend on NNPC for both imported product and the one they're likely going to be buying from Dangote. How that pricing arrangement will come will be what we need to, wait to see. So supply alone is not the issue.
So I don't think you quite answered Kayade's question, and it's important. The second part of it, really, the stock that is being sold now, or that has been sold for the past few weeks, is it the one offloaded from Dangote Refinery by NNPCL? We saw videos 3 weeks ago of 300 trucks of the NNPCL offloading petrol from the Dangote station. That's 16.8 million liters. Did that product ever hit the market?
Well, it will hit the market, but we certainly from Petrol did not, buy from that stock. And I'll tell you why. NNPC has over 300 retail outlets in this country. And so it's simple to make math that, whatever administrative mechanism they want to manage that product that was lifted, it will go to their own retail outlets. So we have been buying the product that they sell to us from the sources, from different sources that they get. But I can tell you without an iota of doubt that those 300 trucks, they are already loaded in trucks. So they will go to just straight forward to NNPC retail outlets.
Okay. So even if it was 16.8 million liters, and our daily consumption really is well above 16.8 million liters, according to reports, is hovering between 48 and 50 million liters per day. So that means that there's still some importation component to back up the 16.8 million liters that was offloaded from Dangote Refinery weeks ago. So we can safely say that we're still importing. But here's another question, Mr. Gillis-Harry. Is it true that Dangote Refinery has increased its own pump price of petrol to 977 naira per liter? If that is the case, there are no port charges, no landing cost charges. Why is it so, if that is the case? And what is the implication of this, really, for the negotiations that you are having, that's the marketers, direct negotiations now with Dangote Refinery?
Well, let me answer the earlier question first. The reality is that one refinery cannot satisfy the need of Nigerians on a daily basis. I can tell you that. Because to my knowledge and what I know across the refinery operations in the world, there's no refinery that's operating 100% capacity. So even if we have to have 650,000 barrels per day refined and brought into the domestic consumption, it will still not satisfy what Nigerians are consuming. So let's look at it from this perspective. Import at this point may not be abated. If the Port Harcourt refinery and Warri refinery comes on stream, they have a combined total of about 200 and something thousand barrels per day. There's no way, in my knowledge, that they will run 100% capacity. So there will still be an import component. And that is why we, as an association, also are now looking to trading to be able to help our members to do business, because we have thousands and thousands of stations that are lying down doing no business because they don't have stock to sell.
Right.
And that's affecting every part of what we're doing. So now getting back to Dangote's price. As I speak to you this morning, I don't know what Dangote's price is all about. And that is speaking a lot. Because at this point in Dangote's campaign into Nigeria, retail outlet owners like us should be able to know this is how much Dangote is willing to sell to us. And we have kept that shrouded in secrecy up until now. NNPC came out and gave us a price template. That also did not tell us what is the exact price input from Dangote. So we will encourage Dangote to open up space of communication, talk with all the stakeholders, get valuable inputs from everybody, because it's a business that involves Nigerians, retail outlet owners like us, marketers, and different consumers. So there should be some level of business transparency, even if it's a private business, which we are so proud of, that we have such a facility operating in Nigeria. But we need to start to see the works. So I'm unable to confirm to you if they're going to increase their prices or reduce their prices, because we are not aware. I can tell you about their price for diesel, because the diesel prices were made known to us. Most of us patronized the diesel prices, the diesel purchases. So we know when they increase, we knew when they reduce. But in the case of the PMS, I don't have any information. And so I'm incompetent to make any input into that.
Well, it's just a lot of ironies, contradictions. Really, a lot of these things do not make sense. We shouldn't be here right now, but we understand you have to run. Clearly, this is an ongoing conversation, but we'll let you go now, Mr. Gilisari, and definitely be having you back for an update to this, particularly because we want to know what's then stopping the conversation with Dangote. How much then is NNPCL selling petrol to you? Do you have product? Lots of questions, but we'll allow you to do your work. We've been speaking with President of PETROAN in Nigeria, Mr. Billy Gilisari. Thank you so much for your time. We wish you the very best, and we'll get back to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that's an update on the situation, at least from the Retail Owners Association of Nigeria. There are lots of moving parts in this mix, right? And you've heard what's playing out, or what may be playing out with some of them. But not to worry, we'll be bringing you all of the updates here on Channels Television with the petrol situation. But we'll take a moment, and when we return, we'll bring you top stories that are trending and making the rounds. These stories will form the conversation definitely today and in the coming days. Stay with us. When the petroleum sector as much as sneezes, Nigerians feel the tremor. And retail outlets owned by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited have adjusted the pump price of petrol in Lagos, FCT, and other parts. In Lagos, many NNPCL outlets are now selling a liter of the essential commodity for 998 naira, about 150 naira higher than the initial price of 855 naira, with long snake-like queues at NNPCL outlets in Abule Egba, U-Turn, Abattoir, and others around the axis, as a sudden increase set motorists and transporters into panic buying mode. Our filling stations not owned by the NNPC Limited immediately followed suit, as they also adjusted their pump prices, with many selling as high as 1,000 naira and 50 plus in many parts of Lagos. In Abuja, the nation's capital, the situation was not in any way different, as NNPCL retail outlets hiked the price of the essential commodity from 897 naira to 1,030. Well, the fresh increase followed the September 2nd increase by the NNPC Limited, when the retail company had hiked the price per litre of petrol from 568 to 855 naira. And the Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, has rejected the new increase in petrol pump price, saying it will further deepen poverty in the country. NLC President Comrade Joe Ajaero, in a statement, said it will further deepen poverty as production capacities dip, more jobs lost, with multidimensional negative effect. In light of this, we urge the government to immediately reverse this rate hike, as previous increases did not produce any good result. People only got poorer. He goes on to say, but more fundamentally, the government should be bold enough to tell Nigerians in advance the destination it wants to take the country. As we keep our eyes on the pump prices and the effect it's having on Nigerians, let's head over to the National Assembly, where we understand that the Senate has asked state and local governments to immediately comply with the Supreme Court judgment, particularly relating to LG accounts and the funds given directly to them. The Senate also resolved to take immediate steps to alter sections of the Constitution to give full autonomy to LG administration in the country. The resolution was announced by the Deputy Senate President, Senator Jibrin Barrow. Lawmakers, upon reconvening from a closed-door session where the chamber debated attempt by some state governments to circumvent the ruling of the Supreme Court on July the 11th. Take a listen to some of things that played out in the Senate yesterday.
Few of these state governors or state governments continue to manipulate the State House of Assembly to enact laws that require local governments, upon receipt of this federal allocation from federation account, to remit all or majority or substantial part of the allocation to a dedicated account.
Let's tell you that the new Commissioner of Police in Rivers State, Mustafa Bala, has embarked on an inspection visit to some local government council secretariats which were affected by Monday's violence in the state. The inspection took place after a meeting with Chijioke Nwo at the Obiakpo Council, Rumodumaya. He also visited MOA to see the destruction for himself, after which he visited Isiopo in Ikwere local government area as well as LMN local government. The development comes after reported the political violence, which we saw in the state, resulting into what you've seen, arson and other violent attacks. Let's talk business. The federal government says it has finalized the executive order to implement zero value-added tax and excise duties on pharmaceutical products and medical devices. Disclosing this in a statement, the spokesman of the Federal Ministry of Health and Social Welfare, Alaba Balogun, said finalization of the executive order's harmonized implementation framework has now been cleared for gazetting. He adds that this will ensure that the Federal Inland Revenue Service and the Nigeria Customs Service can provide, or rather proceed, with the implementation of zero VAT and excise duties on pharmaceutical products and medical devices. And outside of the country, Hurricane Milton made landfall on Florida's west coast yesterday, striking a little sooner and further south than forecast, offering the state a glimmer of hope it might be spared the worst of the anticipated catastrophe. The U.S. National Hurricane Center says the storm made landfall around 8:30 p.m. as a Category 3 hurricane with maximum sustained winds of 195 kilometers per hour near Siesta Key. Siesta Key is a barrier island town of some 4,400 of Sarasota, about 100 kilometers south of Tampa Bay metropolitan area, which is home to more than 3 million people. And let's tell you that all 23 Super Eagles players invited for Nigeria's crucial Africa Cup of Nations qualifier against Libya have reported to camp. The final arrivals, Sevilla, Duo, Kelechi Iheanacho and Chidera Echuke, reached the Super Eagles base in Uyo yesterday, providing a timely boost for caretaker coach Augustin Eguavoen ahead of Friday's match. Nigeria, currently with 4 points from their opening 2 matches, aim to strengthen their position in the qualifiers, and the reverse fixtures is scheduled just 4 days later in Penina, Libya. So all the best to Nigeria's Super Eagles. What have you been saying, though, about all of the big stories? I know naturally the price of petrol will be top on that list. Well, Bukola joins me now as we get your thoughts in on the program. Bukola.
Yes, hello again, Kari. There's a lot of anger, a lot of frustration in the comments today. And, you know, it's no surprise because of what we're grappling with now. And, you know, perhaps what is even more uncertain for Nigerians is when will this end? And that's where we're starting off. Fuel now selling in Lagos for 998 naira per litre. Southwest 1,025 naira, Abuja 1,030 naira, Southeast 1,045 naira, South 1,075 naira, Northeast 1,070 naira. And this is just the benchmark price sold by the NNPCL. Other stations in other parts of the country, you know, these regions listed will indeed have petrol selling way beyond 1,100, 1,200 naira, depending on the marketer that's selling to Nigerians. But that's just the price list of the NNPCL. So Colin Okpara is the first person writing in this morning, and he says, this is outrageous, 1,030 naira per litre. How are Nigerians supposed to survive with fuel prices skyrocketing like this? The Tinubu government needs to step up and fix this mess immediately. Enough with the excuses.
Christopher is the next user saying fuel is gradually heading to 2,000 naira per litre. At this point, it looks like fuel is chasing the forex, naira to dollar, because they're not far apart. Goes on to say, I miss the days when fuel scarcity drove the price to 400 naira per litre, but now 1,030 is the new normal. Scarcity will drive the price up 200%. This user predicts. Again, I imagine people say, I reject it. But you can never predict some of these things. So you understand where this user is coming from.
It seems like the more we reject it, the more it's chasing at us. So
maybe stop rejecting and focus on the people who are meant to do something, right?
Absolutely. But the sad thing is that they're not saying anything, but we'll keep asking the questions. Yeah. And this next user, who is Dr. D, has quite a lot to say. And Dr. D says, wow, that's unbelievable. If the price is really reaching 1,030 naira per litre, it's going to place an even greater strain on everyday living costs. I hope the government can address this issue and find ways to stabilize the prices, because many people are already struggling to cope, and that's an understatement. Many people are unable to eat right now. And that's the truth. So
petrol is literally a luxury item right now with the price. It's luxury. If you're earning 30,000, because a lot of people have not started paying the minimum wage, right? So if you're earning 30,000 naira and you want to fuel per month, not per day, right? And you want to fuel whatever it is you use, maybe a motorcycle, a generating set. Let's say you buy 5 liters, right, to be modest, per week, right? 5 liters per week times 4.
5,600 naira per liter.
20,000 naira. So you have 10,000 naira left to feed, to at least keep
pay
something
your bills.
For you get it, for power, accommodation, and the rest. So yes, I think it should be a luxury item. Let's just declare it a luxury item. Charge all of the other charges on it. Uncle Choice has the next one, again predicting that this will go beyond what we have already, heading to 2,000 or 3,000 by December with the way things are going.
We reject it.
Yeah, you need a little bit of humor here and there. So yes, thank you very much, Bukola, for that one.
Well, this last one is from Tayuns, who say, feel like NATO, they trek the way people for Old Testament, they run them. Well, pretty much trying to say that it may seem like we would have to resort to walking the way the biblical people in the Old Testament did.
Well,
so
people are already doing that. So they do, they trek for a bit and use what they have to
balance up.
Yeah, to balance up and take transportation. So that's the reality. But that's not all. Let's talk about the fuel queues resurfacing across Nigeria as petrol prices go up. So it's like a twin devil. Once prices are about to go up, or when they go up, naturally queues will follow. So it's usually two. Once you see queues, you know that there's a price increase. Or once you hear price increase, you know there's queue. They go hand in hand. Taye and Kendi. Senator Olalere has this to say: a straightforward solution is lowering petrol prices for consumers or a straightforward solution to lowering petrol prices for consumers is for the federal government to subsidize the crude oil supply to Dangote directly from the source. This user says this will not only reduce production costs, but will also result in a decrease in the final price of petrol. So subsidy is what we're going back to.
Eliminate the middleman that was initially collecting the subsidy, right?
What middleman was collecting the subsidy?
The NNPCL.
So this is for crude.
Okay.
Right. If they're given Dangote crude.
Okay, subsidize the crude oil.
The crude,
yeah.
right. So this user is asking for a subsidy. So not subsidizing the
petrol,
the product or the output, final output, but subsidizing the crude. So whichever way, it looks like subsidy is still being asked for. Because clearly, as I said earlier on, other things aren't growing as fast as the price of petrol.
And, you know, there are many creative solutions that have been, you know, brokered amid all of this. The Trade Union Congress president had said some weeks back on our platform, by the way, that, you know, the federal government can give concession in forex to petrol marketers, importers who can import petrol. Perhaps that will bring down just a little bit the cost of petrol. But more importantly, that would guarantee sufficiency, you know, in the market rather than this perennial cycle of scarcity that we keep experiencing.
So we're back to still important. I think the goal was to have energy security sufficiency back home. So the Port Harcourt Refinery, by the way, has been very quiet. You know, let's take more comments. The
NNPCL Group Managing Director, the energy security you promised is not here. Where is it?
It's looking even farther from us right now. The next user, Sesioni Paint, Bukola says that for how long are we going to be resilient? Just because NNPC announced increment, majority of fuel stations are not selling. Transport fare has increased again. Must we use all our salary to enter transport? It's exhausted. It's becoming unbearable. You know, some of these things, you have to say it as they feel it. And that's what the user is essentially saying, something we reiterated earlier on the trends.
The Nigerian kind of grammar, compelled by peculiar circumstances. We spend all of our money, all of our salary on entering transport, Mr. President. Please take note of that. His Cleopatra says, since there's fuel scarcity again, the keke driver was complaining that the price has increased again. She bought it for 900 plus last night and 1,200 naira this morning. In the same filling station, the bus driver I entered was literally, the bus I entered rather, or boarded as the case may be, was literally begging the fuel attendant to sell to them.
So real stories, real people, just in case you're wondering who are the people feeling this. I bet you're feeling it as well. But I will take a moment from some of the things you're saying. The Nigeria Labour Congress has also said, no, this is making people poorer. This is clearly not the way to go. But we'll take a moment and then give you some other angles to this, the economic bit. Does it make economic sense? The market forces responsible for this yet again. There's a lot in the mix, as we said. So we're ensuring that you get all of the angles to this. So stay with us right here. We're still dealing with this all-important conversation in a moment. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the Morning Brief on Channels Television, and we're still staying with the petrol conversation, particularly with a view to looking at the implications of this new price adjustment on cost of living, on the economy, and all the other related issues. And joining us to have an understanding, to help us have an understanding with this is Economist, Mr. Kelvin Emmanuel. Mr. Emmanuel, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, indeed. I'm sure that, you went to bed reflecting on the new price reality as far as petrol is concerned. And this morning, we've tried to understand the factors responsible for this new increase, particularly as we spoke not too long ago with one of the marketers from the Retail Association, the president to be precise. But there seems to be little information that he has as well about what is responsible. Based on the current realities of landing cost of petrol, our continuing importation, in spite of the fact that we now have a homegrown refinery, what do you believe to be the cause of this current increase?
Well, I think it was 2 days ago, I was informed that the State House communications team and NNPC officials had a meeting with some people in Lagos where they announced the new pricing template and announced to them that the market has been deregulated. What I have not seen, which is quite strange, is that following that closed door event, there's supposed to be official communication from NNPC that sections 205 and 206 of the Petroleum Industry Act of August 2021 has come into effect. There's supposed to be an official statement from NNPC on behalf of the government to inform the general public that it's a willing buyer, willing seller market, and that marketers are free to import products. NNPC is no longer going to be the sole buyer, because I'm also aware that for the month of September 2024, last month, NNPC imported 814,000 metric tons of PMS, and they booked cargoes for October, for November, and for December of 2024. So the question now becomes, number one, the questions I have for the government and the questions that we should ask that will inform this current increase is, number one, at the current price, recommended retail price of PMS in Nigeria, NNPC is no longer subsidizing petrol. Even at 897 that they were selling in Abuja and 855 they were selling in Lagos, they were no longer subsidizing the petrol prices in Nigeria. Because if you look at the pricing template for PMS, what the refinery actually gets is ex-refinery price and a premium, which is anywhere between $680 and $700 per metric ton, and premium. Every other cost like demurrage, like finance costs for financing LC, like throughput and shuttle, and then costs that they build in, like NMDPRA fee, margin distribution, is solely on the government. Anywhere between 28 and 31 cents per litre is solely on the government, not on the refinery. Okay, so the question that we need to ask the government is, why is the government still booking cargoes to come to Nigeria when you have a refinery in Lagos that can supply Nigeria's true daily consumption? Because I maintain that it's cheaper for the government to work with the Dangote Refinery than to import cargoes to Nigeria because of the landing cost of importation. It's cheaper for the government to supply crude oil feedstock to the Dangote Refinery and work under the Naira-based sales swap arrangement than for the government to import cargoes into Nigeria that has issues of quality control. So the impact of this development is that you're going to see an immediate effect on prices. And now, the last time we spoke, we were talking about the central bank and the decision of the NPC to raise MPR by 50 basis points, despite the fact that there was a 2 months consecutive slowdown in the rate of increase in inflation. Now we see the wisdom in the NPC deciding that they were going to raise by 50 basis points despite that slowdown because they preempted this decision. Maybe they had knowledge of what was going to happen, and they, like they said, it's better for us to increase the MPR. I was just made to know by someone who is close to me last night that he needs to borrow money for his business at 37.5% interest, and the bank is offering him a 4-month moratorium. And he's going to have to start paying about 4.8 million naira interest, by the 5th month. Now, that's the reality of businesses today. Businesses are going to have to borrow at anywhere between 35 and 40% interest. The question is, how do they survive? How are they going to turn a profit? And they're going to pass on this to consumers because as you have the RRP for PMS go up, you're going to see it reflect in inflation. When we see it reflect in inflation, it's going to affect the decision of the central bank to sacrifice growth on the altar of firm stability.
So, I'm sure you have heard this question over and over again. What then is the advantage of Dangote Refinery if the only round of purchase was that the NNPC took from it some weeks ago, and it hasn't been buying from it since then? And we don't know much about the conversation between Dangote and the marketers. Does it then mean that Dangote is exporting what it is daily producing?
Yes, number one, let me answer the question. The advantage of Dangote is that NNPC, for example, is owing traders, international traders, $6.8 billion in modified carrying agreements that it did to give them crude oil and then bring in PMS. Because of the many obligations it has, it for a while wasn't able to give them crude oil and get the PMS like it usually does. And so those debts piled up, right? Now, the advantage of working with Dangote is that you don't have a situation where your largest crude oil refiner, commercial refiner in Nigeria, is having to go to the market to source FX to import crude oil from Brazil and the United States, like he was, okay? So you take that pressure away from the FX market, which is very good. Number two, the advantage of working with him is that if you give him crude oil feedstock in Naira, you can enter an arrangement like the technical subcommittee had proposed, and they're signing an MOU, where he can give you back PMS of equivalent value at a Naira fix, right? That is very important because then the flat system of gasoline pricing doesn't come into play. If you give him crude oil in dollars, he has to sell back to you in dollars, and then you have the exchange rate forces controlling the price. If you give him crude oil in Naira, he can peg the Naira rate at which he's giving you back PMS. Now, that's the advantage of working with him. And then the landing cost that is incurred for working with him.
But, Mr. Emmanuel,
into Nigeria.
Mr. Emmanuel, pardon me, you don't get my point. I mean, what is the advantage to Nigerians if we have that refinery, a homegrown refinery, and NNPCL or government by extension is still choosing to book cargoes for petrol?
No, so now the advantage, we don't have any advantage because the government is deciding not to work with Dangote. That's why we're not enjoying the advantage of Dangote Refinery in Lagos. If the government, keeps its promise and it does more than it says, because I insist, the minister sent out a press release where he said that the partnership with the Dangote Refinery has begun. But the question we have to ask is, as we speak today, as the government started delivering the 12 million barrels of cargoes that it promised the Dangote Refinery for the month of October. That's the question. Okay, has it really started implementing the partnership it said? That's the question we have to ask. So if the government is not taking advantage of the refinery by, working with the refinery to do what it says it will do, then the Nigerians are not going to feel the impact. Because the message that the government is sending to Nigerians is that it started working with Dangote, but you're not seeing any impact. When that is not the reality, the government is saying one thing and is doing another. Why would you say you're doing a partnership with the Dangote Refinery and then you're booking cargoes to bring in PMS into Nigeria? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, you say it doesn't make sense. And if you're saying that as an economist, looking at the figures, you can then imagine how Nigerians feel. Maybe it doesn't make sense squared for them. So what do you think the considerations are here? Is it economic and I'm trying to give a benefit of a doubt, right? Is there maybe some economic consideration saying, okay, when we look at the dashboard, all of the other things, it pays us to go this way than this way? Do you think it is more political than economic? Just so we know what we are dealing with here and know that, okay, this is going to defy all economic, understanding, odds, textbook and all. So let's face it with, politics or maybe spiritual. What do you think the consideration is here? Okay,
so first of all, I'll tell you, the Port Harcourt turnaround maintenance of Port Harcourt Refinery has failed completely. There are issues around the fact that the refinery lacks as-built data for them to check the production history, the maintenance history of the refinery, issues on corrosion pipes. There's obsolescence. Like, it's difficult for the technical contractor that was recruited to turn around the refinery to actually get his work done. And also considering that there's a lot of political interference, in terms of, the EPC and the structuring of the finance for the refinery, So the turnaround maintenance of Port Harcourt Refinery, I can tell you, has failed. But I don't know if the government is ashamed to come and tell Nigerians that the turnaround has failed and that it's better for them to focus on the private sector and investments to actually build commercial refineries in Nigeria. Dangote has successfully done that, so maybe there are considerations of probably turning Port Harcourt into a blending plant. I don't know. A blending plant, I should mention, cannot refine crude oil. It can only cure off-spec petrol, like it's done in Malta and Lumen. We're going to see that. But now, what are the considerations? What are the possible justifications for wanting to import? I hear some people say monopoly. Well, the barrier to entry for building a commercial refinery is between $10 and $20 billion. How many people in Nigeria within the last 30 years have invested $10 billion into Nigeria? Even the IOCs, the last major project we had in Nigeria, before the Dangote Refinery was a decision to build Train 7. How many companies in Nigeria have invested $10 billion in Nigeria within the last 30 years? That's the question we should ask. A company in Nigeria invested $20 billion to build a refinery, and that is a major deal. So the talk of monopoly goes out of the window because you can't point to like more than 3 or 4 or 5 companies in Nigeria that can possibly raise that money from equity and debt to undertake such huge projects. Dangote Refinery, I keep telling Nigerians, is the 7th largest refinery in the world. ExxonMobil is the largest oil and gas company in the world, but not even ExxonMobil has a refinery the size of Dangote Refinery anywhere in the world. And ExxonMobil has about 4 refineries that are in the top 20. They have a refinery in Singapore called located in Jurong Island that can do 605,000 barrels. They commissioned the refinery in Texas, in Irving, Texas, that can do 250,000 barrels last year. They don't even have a refinery the size of Dangote Refinery. It's a major deal. So the question is, there's no issue of monopoly here. You have a brand new refinery in Lagos. Take advantage of it. The monies you're using to go and import petrol from other parts of the world, which are been proven, by the way, are substandard. I cannot compare with what you get from Dangote Refinery. You can use to provide crude oil feedstock to refinery in Lagos and do a crude oil swap, like it's always done with other counterparties.
Right, Mr. Manuel.
So it's imagination, and it doesn't make any economic sense whatsoever.
So clearly, other things are at play here. I mean, from those explanations, but
there are no economic considerations because there are no real justifications for it.
There you go. But a point was made earlier on by the president of PETROAN. Well, he said that in their dealing, for example, with Dangote, that they know the price of diesel that they get. But why is it that they can't get the price of petrol, Dangote's petrol from Dangote? And they find it rather odd. I don't know if you caught that interview just moments ago. So do you think there's also an economic consideration on the part of the business for not letting that out, or something else is at play here yet again?
I'll tell you what is going on. Until NNPC writes Dangote and writes Nigerians and tell Nigerians that sections 205 and 206 of the PIA has been complied with and the market has effectively been deregulated. Because as we speak, NMDPRA regulates Dangote and Dangote is subject to regulators. Today as we speak, until there's official communication, not the closed door meetings they had in Lagos earlier this week, to the public, and to the refinery, the price of PMS is still regulated by the government. And if the price of PMS is regulated by the government, a commercial player in the midstream sector cannot come and send out a price template because it's regulated. Diesel is not regulated by the government. Diesel was regulated by the government more than 10 years ago. Jet A1 was regulated by the government more than 10 years ago. So, of course, the refinery can produce price on that. But for PMS, the market is still regulated because there's not been any official communication.
But, Mr. Emmanuel, is it cheaper for the NNPCL to import and settle its debt to its creditors, that it has incurred over time, or to buy cheaper petrol from Dangote and pay over time, in rethinking these considerations that we're talking about?
Well, the NNPC told you that the landing price for what they were importing, which is it has issues of quality control, because when the test was done, it showed that the sulfur level was over 1,500 ppm and the octane level was below like 85. The landing cost, they said, was 1,106 naira per liter. Dangote, the price of petrol from the Dangote Refinery, of course, is below 1,106 naira per liter. So if, for example, you're getting petrol ex-refinery price, and even when you build in all your finance costs, because when they were lifting from Dangote, they didn't have the cash to pay, so they had to go to a bank to get a letter of credits, and it came at the finance cost. All your shuttle and demurrage and the throughput costs and your NMDPRA inspection fee distribution, even when you build all of that into the pricing template, it was still well below what the NNPC claimed they were landing PMS at. So the question is, why land PMS at over 1,100 naira per liter, then apply a subsidy to Nigerians that cost the government? Because when you apply a subsidy, you have to use the revenues that NNPC generates from upstream to defray the cost, and you don't pay the government dividends, when you can buy petrol at a cheaper price from the Lagos refinery. The economics, the maths doesn't math. It's not mathing.
Well, Mr. Emmanuel, quickly, so let's also understand the supply angle of it. So there's the regulation, the law, the pricing, but the supply bit. How much is Dangote able to produce and supply Nigeria? Because Mr. Gillis-Harry also mentioned it, right? How much is Dangote able to supply? If our consumption is 40 million, can Dangote meet 40 million? Clearly would need to make up for the difference in some way. And since Port Harcourt Refinery is not working, there also have to be some sort of importation. Don't you agree?
Well, so, right now the refinery, I'm aware, is able to do about 30 million liters per day.
Is it 30 or 10?
30 million liters a day.
Of petrol?
30 million. Yes, of petrol, yes. Nigeria can do, consumes, the true consumption of Nigeria 35 million liters per day. That's the true consumption. I know in the past I've mentioned that our consumption over the last 20 years came from about 21 million liters per day, and has grown steadily at between 7 and 12% compound average growth rate. And it doesn't make sense that your consumption all of a sudden jumps by 300% over the last 10 years. The data doesn't add up. There's no data to back it. There's no empirical evidence, like you say, to back up that sudden jump in increase, except there is foul play. But the refinery is ramping up its capacity, and by Christmas,
well, insiders have said that, well, it's doing 10 million or so, and not 30 million. So is that the goal by December, or that's what it is now?
Absolutely not true. Because in fact, when NNPC started taking PMS from Dangote, they were taking the first two they started taking. They were taking a little more than 10 million liters a day. So it's absolutely false information that people will say that the refinery is only able to do 10 million liters of PMS per day. Absolutely not true. That's just new propaganda that people put out to justify importation. It's absolutely false information.
So many questions left unanswered, Mr. Emmanuel, but thank you for helping us understand the issues so that we can ask those important questions of those who should answer, i.e. the Ministry of Petroleum and especially the NNPCL. We hope that when next we have this conversation, we'll be speaking in more positive terms than what we're seeing right now. Must continue to hope against hope. Mr. Kelvin Emmanuel, Economist, thank you so much for your time on the program.
Thank you for having me.
And up next, we'll be speaking to something just as important. It's still impacting on the lives of Nigerians, maybe even the pocket as well, but especially the lives of Nigerians, is transportation on the waterways, matters of regulation and safety of travelers on waterways. So stay with us for that conversation. We'll be right back.
Well, let's get you into the realm of the waterways this morning. There have been avoidable accidents on the waterways across the country. Is it in Niger, in Lagos, in Jigawa, in other parts of the country, and particularly the one that happened in Niger State last month, got a lot of people concerned, seeing images of, well, the passengers on the boat before the eventual mishap, seeing hundreds of people overcrowded on a boat without life jackets. Well, the president put out a statement asking that investigation be done by NIWA. And for a lot of people, they heard the agency NIWA and they thought, oh, wait a minute. We have an agency called NIWA. What have they been up to? What do they do really to ensure safety on our waterways? But this morning, we bring to you the MD of the National Inland Waterways Authority, Mr. Bola Oyebamiji, joining us virtually this morning. Mr. Oyebamiji, you're welcome to the Morning Brief.
Thank you so much, Kayode, for having me.
Well, Nigeria is a country of waters. I was doing research and I realized that a lot of our states are actually named after water, Osun, Lagos, and I can go on and on. Majority of our states. So there's no gainsaying that water is a major part of our lives here in Nigeria. And you had an agency that is leading a lot of work in that light. Before we get into the mishaps, what is being done, just by way of refreshing, what is your agency about for those who may have not heard about your agency before or the work you do? Just about a minute. Go ahead, Mr. Oyebamiji.
Thank you so much. Well, National Inland Waterways is an authority, is an agency under the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy. And this agency, by its act, is to regulate waterways in Nigeria. That's why we call it inland waterways. That's the local waterways within the country. And we have about almost 26 states that have navigable waters in Nigeria. So our major role is to regulate, to make sure that we make all our waterways navigable for the transporters.
Right. So getting a sense of that background is important for the conversation, such that people can also be a part of this conversation. So let's get into the mishaps we've had. I've listed quite a number of them, leading to the deaths of scores of Nigerians. A lot of them avoidable, actually, I should say, avoidable deaths. But the latest one, well, the one before the one in Lagos, that's the one in Niger, the president released a statement, asked NIWA to investigate and ensure that this does not happen again. What have you found to be the major cause of these boat mishaps? And when I say major cause, the reason people flout regulations, is it lack of manpower to ensure that these rules, regulations are enforced? Right, overcrowding, use of life jackets and the rest. So is it lack of manpower, lack of proper coordination? What exactly is responsible for it on your end, on the one hand, and what has been done to ensure that these things don't happen again on the other?
Thank you, Kayode. Majorly and naturally, mishaps happens in waterways by human errors, majorly. Sometimes by mechanical, and again sometimes by weather conditions. The one that happened in Niger recently, that was on October 1st, one we can say that it's a combination of human errors and the boat operators not adhere strictly to the code of our transportations. That one was due to overloading. A boat that is meant to carry just between 30 and 50 carried about 150 passengers. And unfortunately again, it travels by the night. We have our road marshals and our water marshals that assist so much when we have to enforce these codes. And we have a team, an emergency teams that whenever mishaps happen or accident on waters happen, they quickly intervene. And when we, at least anytime we heard of such, our marshals is available to assist. We have what we call boat ambulances that we have deployed to all the states that can rescue anytime, any day, and give them first aid attention. But unfortunately, the regulation states that boats must only travel on our waterway between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. And this happens around 8:30 p.m. So that was the reason why we have that casualties.
So, sir, I'm wondering if these mishaps are due to human errors, as you say they are, or really due to institutional failure. How much capacity has NIWA deployed to the ports, or where these boats travel from, such that even when these boats are traveling at night against the regulations set by NIWA, that they're stopped from traveling? Is it a challenge of lack of human capacity to regulate the waterways?
No, okay. We deployed about 350 water marshals to all our waterways in our country, but we operate between the hours of 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Unfortunately, travels at night is something that is very, very wrong for the users of our waterways and the boat operators. So, and that was the reason why at least this happened. Ordinarily, it wouldn't have happened if it is within the stipulated hours. However, because of this, we have scaled our game. We have decided to do shifts as from October 4th. We have decided to rotate our staff between the hours of 6 a.m. and to 6 a.m. the next day. Ordinarily, it is not something that we're supposed to do, but because of these mishaps, and we discovered that people, when you want to enforce, when you tell them that these are the regulations code, they don't adhere to it. So we have scaled our game. So it is not about incapacity. We have the capacity to do and to monitor and to control and to regulate the operators on our waterways.
But shouldn't the authority even be deploying surveillance at night to check, some transporters flouting these regulations? And I say this because the boat mishap that occurred in Kwara State last year, June, was also said to be traveling at night. So some lessons ought to have been learned. And besides that, sir, there are also reports that these boats are not they're not okay for travel on the waterways. The boats that was traveling on the Kwara waterways last year was split into two before it capsized. And this one too that happened in Niger State, according to reports, it was not water-worthy, for want of better description. So isn't your regulation, to the extent that it stops these transporters who obviously do not have the professional wherewithal to embark on these service, to stop them from even practicing in the first place?
Well, these boats, we carry out regular maintenance on these boats. We have checks once in a year, and these boats they are not so bad to that extent. They are wooden boats. However, that's what is common in Nigeria. We are just trying as much as possible to deploy fiber boats to replace this, but it has to be gradual. However, I won't agree that the boats are not serviceable. They are good boats, at least to some extent. The major problem was the overloading. And the one you mentioned in Kwara State last year was carrying about almost 200 passengers without even wearing life jackets. And that was around 2 a.m. So, but just like I said earlier on, we have scaled our game since we now discovered that the boat operators most time did not adhere to these operational boats. We have decided to run 24-hour services now, so that we can prevent this ugly occurrence. Thank you.
So speak to us about how these boats even got licensed in the first place, because that's another part of this conversation that is important to have. Who gave them licenses to ply that area? If some of these boats are not water-worthy, as it can be described, how did they get licensed? In some parts, we hear that there are only 2 boats plying a certain route. One of the cases, I think in August, where nearly 30 farmers on their way to their rice fields drowned after their overloaded boat sank in the Doi River in Sokoto State. It's been said that there's so much passengers, 900, but there are only 2 boats. So they are left with the option, sadly, of crowding themselves into one boat just so they can get to where they are going. So who licenses these boats? That should be your agency. So how do these boats even find their way to the waterways?
We do license all boats that goes on our waterways, and this has a process. The process is when you acquired a boat, you applied to NIWA, and after applying to NIWA, the boat operators will undergo training, will certify the boat operators that they can navigate through our waters, and after that, we look at the boat, we examine the boat, and we give it, we issue certificate, that's give it a clean bill of sale. And immediately we do that, that boat can go into our water, and is to travel to wherever it wants to. And there is a maintenance check every 6 months. The boat has to come to our yard, to our dockyard. We look at it again, we examine it again, and we issued license and we chartered it. That's the way we do. So we do license the boats. Most time, occasionally, we have some of them that are not licensed. But that's why we have our surveillance. We have our surveillance that go on our waterways to be sure that all these boats that are not licensed are impounded.
So for those places where we saw the mishaps, were those boats involved in mishaps, were they licensed by NIWA?
Sure, they are licensed.
So the ones that are said to be not water-worthy were also licensed by NIWA?
Yes, there wasn't anyone that was not water-worthy. I think the major problem of that mishap was overloading and travel at night. That was the major cause of that accident.
So,
ordinarily, of course, that boat was okay, but a boat that was to carry between 30 and 40 that now carries 200 passengers. So that was what really happened. It was overloading. It wasn't as if the boat is not good to navigate. It was okay to navigate, but overloading created that bigger problems for us.
Sir, I wonder if this overloading problem is away from the scrutiny of NIWA only when they travel at night. I wonder if they flout this particular bit of the regulation during daytime as well, so that NIWA can be on the trail of the operators who do this. But as you reflect on that, sir, I'd like you to speak to this, contention or bickering, as you may call it, between the federal and state governments over whose jurisdiction it is, to manage the waterways. Is there still one, and is that the reason that we find that perhaps in other states of the Federation, there is very little intervention in water transport, as we see in Lagos, that has a Lagos State Water Authority that manages transportation on the waterways? And what is the current arrangement, by the way, between that agency and the federal government in managing the waterways within its jurisdiction in Lagos State? Does Lagos State collect taxes from the operators who ply the waterways?
Well, for the states, we have collaboration and we cooperate with the states. We can't do it alone. NIWA cannot do it alone. That's why all the states that have our inland waterways, especially and these are the water that runs through that state, we have about 26 and these are such states in Nigeria. We collaborate with the states, we cooperate with them to give our water at least a navigable trend, and at the same time to run a safety and secured waterways. We can't do it alone. We know that despite the fact that we have the absolute jurisdiction, is always good when you cooperate and collaborate with states, especially to achieve the desired result. So we do collaborate with states. Just recently, the Honorable Minister of Marine and Blue Economy just called a meeting of all the commissioners of transportation in all the states so that we can sit together. We can look critically how we can collaborate to secure all our waterways and possibly to even deploy fiber boats, at least from the states. The states need to assist NIWA,
right,
and NIWA needs to assist the states to achieve the best for our waterways.
The truth is there's so much potential in the waterways. I don't know if a lot of people will be turning attention to the waterways now that petrol prices have increased, but we know that the boats also use petrol, right? But there's so much in terms of tourism, transportation, and the rest. Just give us a sense as we wind down in about a minute of your goal for that authority and for the waterways of Nigeria to do way more than it's doing right now. As I said, we have so much potential. You've been in the private sector, the banking sector, so I imagine you bring to bear a lot of experience. So what is your vision, really? What can we hold you to?
Well, thank you so much, Kari. Our vision, especially from when the minister came on board, the first thing the minister admonished to all the agencies, especially NIWA, is that PPP is the end thing. That we need to partner with the private enterprise so that we can efficiently and effectively deliver the goodies that are in the waterways. If you travel abroad, we have seen at least the development of the coastal regions, the development of their waterways, and the commercializations of their waterways. To the extent, just like you mentioned, tourism. Tourism is something and is that can add value to our GDP if well developed. And these are our objectives. This is our vision that is important for us to develop beyond reasonable doubt.
Right.
And these are a waterways that can generate revenue and income for the nation. So we need to, and we have actually partnered with several. We have about 3 ongoing now, via the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy, powered by the minister. And I'm sure in the next couple of months, this results will be regenerated. Thank you.
Final note. The issue between Niwa, Lagos, who has exclusive rights and all of that, has that been resolved now? Have you gotten all the authority, or there's still some gray areas?
No, this has been resolved. We are collaborating with Lagos State. Lagos State is doing very well with Niwa, and Niwa is doing well with Lagos State.
So they've given you all the authority that you say you have by law?
Sure.
Okay. Well, I think we'll anchor at this point, but we'll definitely keep our eyes on the authority and, of course, what plays out in the waterways, because we need there to be all the safety and be able to harness all the potentials in that. But we'd like to thank you so much, the MD, National Inland Waterways Authority, Mr. Bola Oyebamji. Wishing you the very best, and we don't look forward to seeing any other mishap. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Buki.
We'll take a moment now, and when we return, bring another side to this conversation. It's a very important one, so stay with us.
So welcome back. We are going to explore another leg of the conversation with regards to water transportation. This time around, we're going to be looking at activities on water transport from the point of view of a private sector operator. So joining us this morning on the program to have this conversation is Mrs. Dorcas Adiremi, Barrister Dorcas Adiremi, to be precise. She's the CEO, GT Global Alliance Group, owners of GT Waterline Ferry Services. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you.
So before we begin to look at the issues of regulation and capacity and all of that, I'd like you to speak to that mishap that happened on waterways in Lagos recently, where a boat, a ferry, collided with a wooden boat. Many have been asking, is that even possible? How do they collide? What really happened? So can you please give us an aerial view, or from the point of view of someone that's experienced?
Thank you very much. I'd first of all use this time to commemorate with the families and also operators at the Ojo area where this incident occurred. Yes, it can happen for boats to collide because, one, there are two things involved here: the water current at the time and the speed of the captains at that time. If the water current is high, and it is always high in that area of Lagos waterways, right? So, and then the captain is on a speed, there is no how he is able to break his speed conveniently, if the other one also is coming on a speed. So most often what happens is where they are trying to maneuver, after maybe sighting at a very close range, and then you try to maneuver, the wave that follows the engine is enough to capsize the one that is coming. So most often it's not like it's a direct capsizing of the oars, right? But it is of, a close range of the vessels, and then the wave of a high current water, which definitely it cannot hold. And then it also goes to the type of boat that is in question here. The sizes, the type also are involved in what will bring about a collision.
But it was a daytime transport, so the captains of both vessels would have sighted each other ahead of time and would have had enough time to, avoid what happened, don't you think?
Well, it's not. If you look at it like you're describing of what happened on the road, you would think that it's that possible. particularly where we cannot take away overspeeding in that particular instance. Overspeeding on the waterways is not like you can easily press your brake when you are on the road. You need to, the wave of the water itself is what is propelling the engine, right? So you are the one who wants to control that wave. So if you're already on a speed, it's going to have to first of all balance you before you gain the control. So it's not easy to say that it's being able to see that one, and then, like I said, simply collision on waterways is about maneuvering. Yes, they will have cited, particularly because it's a day traffic, cited, and then you wanting to, this is too close, and then you maneuver, and as you do that, the wave itself, the current, and that one is coming, and it just hits that current.
In fact, what's been said, preliminary findings, is that the fiber boat, I think it was a fiber boat.
No, it's a wooden boat.
It was a wooden boat.
Yes.
Okay, the preliminary report had said it was, one of them was fiber, that it was
Most
overloaded,
likely.
then that may have blocked the captain from seeing the other boat coming. And then last minute sighted it, and not much could have been done. And I think it just ties into the point about safety, which you were going to raise, because we just had the conversation with NIWA, right? And you'd expect that everything happening on the waterway is well policed, for lack of a better term. So in terms of manpower, the number of manpower, he said 350, not for Lagos, for the whole country. So you wonder how well that would work in terms of regulation. And I'm not even talking about the northern states and the kind of water body they have. You literally need way more to be able to police. So in terms of, you're an operator in the sector in Lagos.
Yes,
I know that there are, practices. Lagos will say, we operate best practices. And even in fact, we still see some of this mishaps. So in terms of the safety, the regulation, how would you describe it? You're an operator from the state and from the federal level.
I'd say that I'd give it to Lagos State. Lagos State is doing a lot of work with regulations on the waterways. However, after the judgment with respect to authorities on the waterways, in line with what we have in the constitution of the country, that Lagos State has to somewhat hand over its waterfronts, its regulation, and running to NIWA. There's been a bit of step back to other administrative and structural works to be done by LASWA, but not majorly on the forefront of regulation and perhaps, how will I call it now, monitoring. Even though at all of the jetties certified in Lagos, I think we have about 35. We still, as we speak this morning, have LASWA officials, that is Lagos State Waterways Authorities officials in all of these jetties that the government, have satisfied or built or are the one regulating. Meaning that, yes, they are not totally sitting back and allowing NIWA. I'd appreciate the MD of NIWA. I listened to him when he was speaking. And when he said 350, I said, that's not even enough for Lagos. Lagos alone will swallow up that 350 manpower, talking about regulation, monitoring and ensuring that safety regulations on our waterways are properly adhered to. 350 is not enough, a number or capacity. If that's not going to serve Lagos, I wonder how it's going to serve the whole of the country. So perhaps maybe there's a bit of, misnumbering in that 350. Definitely, it can be 350.
So we need more marshals.
Almost definitely.
NIWA, marshals.
Yeah, NIWA to be able to carry out the judicious and proper work of monitoring and regulating the waterways in Nigeria needs to build up on capacity. Because as an operator, right, I'm licensed and registered by NIWA and of course by LASWA, and I'm giving regulations. But where we have people duties, where you have people processes, there has to be a lot of monitoring to ensure that people are doing things according to standard. So that's why the capacity that NIWA needs. NIWA can't have a lot of their officials sitting in the offices. No, they must have, a collaboration with the state government, right, in all of the jetties that are operative, where commercial transportations will be moved out. There has to be a NIWA official, more than one, depending on what is the movement of passengers in all of these jetties. So if we have a jetty that is always filled up with passengers like we have in Ikorodu, Ikorodu is majorly the hub of water transportation in Lagos State, right? After Ikorodu, we go to Badagry, and then we go to Ojo. So we need, there has to be a presence that is going to ensure that all these regulations are properly carried out. And what are the safety regulations really? Is before a boat even goes out, I heard him say that every 6 months. What we do in Lagos State is 3 months. Every three months, all boats goes back to NIWA for them to have proper dry dock check. They check the oil, they check the navigational skills, they check that the captains and the crews, are there. They check that there are navigational systems, right on the waters. They check that all the life jackets are properly positioned, right? So while I would not say that government is not doing well, yeah, they are trying, but I would say that NIWA needs to build up on capacity. There has to be more collaboration between NIWA and other state government water authorities to ensure, because we are not looking at Lagos State alone here, we are looking at every other state in the country where they have water access, right? So the NIWA should be able to collaborate with each state agency and authority, right? So that they are able to make all of these things work together.
So give us a sense of how many officials of NIWA are found in each jetty in Lagos where water transportation occurs, and how many officials are on the waterways itself, because one of the boats in the collision story, in the boat mishap that happened in Lagos recently, was overloaded, and it was a day transport. So that could have been prevented if it was a daytime travel. So how many officials from both LASWA and NIWA are found present at each jetty in Lagos?
Presently, at each jetty in Lagos, we do not have less than 2 for LASWA. But I think that for NIWA, maybe 1 off. Because I think they're still trying to, establish, tentacles, understand where these jetties are, how are they running it, and what they can do. So presently, not sufficiently on ground. And when you say on the waterways, yes, what usually happens is that we have patrol boats during peak hours. So very early in the morning, loading starts about 6:30 a.m. The first boat is about leaving at that time. So between 6:30 a.m. and about 11, we have patrol boats, because those are the peak period that people move on the waterways. So there are patrol boats. Usually they used to move around, but now they are stationed at some places, because of course it is fuel that they are using to move these boats, and I don't know what is their allowances for this, but we have them stationed at some major points on the waterways. And if they are able to notice anything wrong, right, they're able to stop that vessel right there on the waterways and ensure that, proper things. So like we are talking about this particular incident, it definitely has to be that there's no official on ground, because it is,
or if there was, someone may have dropped the ball.
Exactly, because it is very, very rare to have boats overloaded. Very, very rare. We have a number
in Lagos, you mean?
In Lagos, I mean. And I'm talking about the incident that happened at Imore in Ojo.
On Monday, right?
On Monday. It's very rare to have boats overloaded in Lagos. Very, very, very rare, because we have a lot of private operators. So it's not even only the government. It's not only people like us who have a number of fleets. We have a lot of other private operators. So it's not possible that you alone wants to move all of the passengers, and then you presently we run 20-seater boats, and by reason of consideration ourselves, we have to reduce passengers to 17 when we look at the water current and what is the weather forecast. So we sometimes don't even carry the full capacity of the boat to ensure safety.
And do they always have their life jackets on?
It's compulsory. That's the reason why we have these regulatory officers on the jet is compulsory.
So again, for that boat, the mishap, the collision, right? We understand that 3 bodies have been recovered.
Yes,
clearly, they were not wearing
followed.
life jackets, I imagine.
Most often, because earlier in the year, we had incidences along the Ikorodu route where I run. While this passenger had the life jacket on, the fear of water, I mean, we still try to educate passengers on the use of the waterways, that once there's an hazard, when there's a boat mishap, the best place for you to be, as long as you have your life jacket on, is in the water. But we have people who are still very afraid of the water. So in this kind of incidents, they may have, because I do not know the exact, I'm yet to get the true picture of what happened, but people may have their life jacket on, but afraid to step into water. Now, if you go down with the vessel, right, you are holding on to a part of the boat and it already has a mishap, water is coming in, and you go down, the work that the life jacket is supposed to do will not be able to do, because the incident in Ikorodu, when we recovered one of the body, he was holding on to the seat this way and he had a life jacket on. So the life jacket popped but couldn't get him off what he was holding on to. So he went down with the vessel. So these are the things we say to passengers. We have a pre-boarding check that we tell them. Please ensure you have your life jacket properly fastened, and in case there's an hazard, please step into the water. As long as your life jacket is on you, you have to step into the water.
This conversation is also important, aside the safety bit, and I'm glad that we're able to have it, because this is not something people really talk about. And then when the mishaps happen, they're like, why is it happening? So that's why we decided that this is a conversation we must have. But there's also the bit of the viability, both for passenger and operators of water transportation, particularly in Lagos, right, where there's traffic, and you know what traffic does, right? So a lot of people, I imagine, are beginning to embrace water transportation more, particularly for maybe the route you plan. But then with this increase in the price of petrol, so you may have chased people away from the road to the water, but obviously it's impacting on your operations as well.
Seriously. Serious impact. Serious impact. Serious impact. Yesterday, I was
like 4 times.
I was overwhelmed myself, because we've had to sit around fare increment twice, yesterday making it the 3rd time in a period of 10 months. Serious impact, because this is a major operational tool. Majority of all of the boats on the waterways, particularly that are using outboard engines, are all using PMS.
So you're considering an increase in price yourself, price of...
As we speak is inevitable.
How much is it currently?
Presently, we run 3,000 one trip.
For a 20-minute trip?
For a 20-minute trip.
But if you go by road, how long would that trip take you?
Perhaps an hour, 2 hours.
Depending on what the traffic is.
Depending on what the traffic is saying.
So 5,000 naira per day. So if I'm earning 80,000 naira per month, I'll be spending more than half of that amount on water transport.
Or go by road.
I wrote a post on the passengers platform, and I said to them, I am as worried as you are. And if we down tools, it's affecting you. What do we do?
This is a real effect of a petrol hike on businesses. And you are one of the many businesses that are impacted by this.
Presently, yes. Because although we now have to ensure that our engagement, earlier this year, we had engagement with Yamaha, one of the producers of the outboard engines, to see how we can navigate into a battery-powered engines.
Or CNG.
Or CNG.
So there's that option for you as well.
Yamaha is then now to go and then consider the possibility of that and come back to us. That was where we ended that discussion, that please, yeah, you just brought in a new type of engine and all of that. However, it's still using petrol. So it's really not saving us. Can you look at how to bring up engines that will use CNG or that will use batteries? So that is when we will look at it that, yes, there's an improvement on what they're doing.
Well, we can have this conversation.
How long do you think this particular bit of conversation will yield some fruit?
I'm sure, as it is right now, before the end of this year, we need to go back to that table and have this discussion.
All right. So many legs to it. The collaboration that the MD talked about, but we just may need to have you back on the program sometime soon so that we can explore all the other areas that we have not explored. At this point, we want to say thank you very much for taking our time to come and share your thoughts with us on water transport. We've been speaking with Barrister Dorcas Aderemi. She's the CEO, GT Global Alliance Group, owners of GT Waterline Ferry Services, and Secretary, Joint Ikorodu Ferry Operators. Thank you so much for your time on the program.
Bye.
And this is where we anchor the conversation and indeed the program for today. Thank you so much for watching. But stay with Channels Television. We're covering all of the major stories for you and all the others across the globe as well. We'll be back again tomorrow for the final bit of the program for the week. I am Bukola Koka.
Oh yes, we're in the studio, we're in the filling stations, we're everywhere just for you. So stay with us. Sunrise Daily is next. I'm Kayode Okikelu. Have a great day.